If you want to see how small you really are, wear a name tag. That was something one of the senior servers once told me. And tonight, as I pinned the little black rectangle that read Hannah to my chest, I felt every inch of it. The restaurant smelled like truffle oil and expensive wine, the kind that costs more per bottle than my weekly grocery bill. Crystal chandeliers reflected off polished marble floors, and outside the tall glass windows, downtown Chicago shimmered under a cold spring rain. I adjusted the cuff of my long-sleeved uniform for the 5th time in 10 minutes, making sure the fabric stayed low over my wrist. Makeup can hide a lot, but sleeves are safer. Friday nights in River North meant politicians, tech investors, old money families who spoke softly, but expected the world to lean closer. I balanced a tray of champagne flutes on my palm and reminded myself I only needed 6 more months. 6 months until I finished nursing school. 6 months until tips and double shifts turned into something steady. Table 12 requested another bottle of Dom Perignon. VIP section. Of course. I smoothed my ponytail and walked toward the velvet-roped corner where the real power liked to sit. That was when the air shifted. It's hard to explain unless you felt it before. Conversations didn't stop, but they softened. A path opened without anyone being told to move. He walked in like the room already belonged to him. Tall, dark suit tailored so precisely it looked poured onto him. Dark hair brushed back from a face too composed to be accidental. Dominice Romano. I didn't know his name yet, but I knew what he was the second I saw the men who followed him. Not loud. Not flashy. Just watchful. He took a seat in the corner where he could see everything, especially the exits. I dropped my gaze quickly and stepped toward another table just as a high laugh cut through the room like glass. Olivia Whitmore. I recognized her from social media. Trust fund royalty. 24 and already engaged to a city councilman's son. She wore a white designer dress that probably cost more than my Honda Civic. "Excuse me," she snapped, holding up her empty glass as if it offended her. I approached with a polite smile. "Of course, ma'am." I poured carefully. My hands are steady. They have to be. But just as I lowered the bottle, she shifted her arm. The glass tipped. Red wine cascaded down the front of her dress in a slow, dramatic spill. Gasps fluttered around us. She stared at the stain, then at me, eyes widening in exaggerated disbelief. "Are you serious?" she demanded loudly enough for 3 surrounding tables to hear. "You just ruined this." My stomach dropped. "I'm so sorry. Get down there and fix it." Her voice sharpened. "On your knees. Clean it." Heat rushed to my face. Cameras were already out. I could feel them. I swallowed. This job pays my tuition. I crouched, grabbing a linen napkin, focusing on the marble floor instead of the way people watched. "Unbelievable," she continued. "People like you should be grateful you're even allowed in places like this." The word slid under my skin, familiar and humiliating all at once. As I reached forward, my sleeve slipped back an inch. Just enough. Cool air hit the tender skin at my wrist. I didn't look up. I didn't need to. I felt it. A gaze locking in. Heavy. Calculating. Not amused. Not indifferent. Just watching. And somehow for the first time that night I didn't feel small anymore. I kept my eyes on the marble floor because it was easier to focus on something cold and solid than on the sound of her friends whispering behind manicured hands. The napkin in my fingers soaked up red wine that would never come out of that white fabric, and we both knew it. This was not about the dress. It was about the audience. "Do not just dab it," Olivia said sharply. "Scrub. I have an engagement party next week. This is custom." A few people laughed under their breath. My manager hovered near the bar, pretending to reorganize bottles, pretending this was not happening in his dining room. I pressed the linen against the stain, slow and careful, aware of the way phones tilted to capture the angle. My wrist throbbed where the sleeve had slipped back. I tugged it down, but the damage was done. I could feel that gaze again, steady and unwavering, like a spotlight that did not flicker. "You know what?" Olivia continued, raising her voice just enough. "Maybe if you had chosen a better career, you would not be crawling on the floor." Crawling. The word lodged in my chest. I stood slowly, keeping my expression neutral the way customer service training teaches you to do. "I apologize for the inconvenience," I said evenly. "We will cover the cleaning cost." Her eyes narrowed. She had expected tears. Or anger. Or something dramatic. Instead she got calm. That seemed to irritate her more. Inconvenience, she repeated. You embarrassed me in front of half this city. I did not respond, because arguing would cost me my job, and my job paid tuition, and tuition paid for a future that did not involve being spoken to like this. She leaned closer, lowering her voice so only I could hear. People like you should learn your place. The words were soft, precise, meant to cut without leaving marks. Before I could step back, she flicked her fingers against my name tag, hard enough to make it swing. Hannah, she read mockingly. Remember who you are. And that was when a chair scraped against marble. Not loudly, not violently, just enough to interrupt the rhythm of the room. Every head turned without being told to.
Dominic Romano stood.
He did not rush. He did not raise his voice. He adjusted the cuff of his suit jacket as if he had simply remembered something important. The men at his table straightened automatically. Olivia noticed him then, and her posture shifted in an instant. Shoulders back, chin higher. Recognition flickered across her face. Mr. Romano, she said quickly, smoothing her hair. I did not realize you were here. His expression did not change. His eyes moved from her to me, to the faint crease in my sleeve where I had tried to hide what should have stayed hidden. I was, he replied, his tone even almost conversational. And I saw. The room felt smaller. The air heavier. He stepped closer, stopping a comfortable distance away. Never touching anyone. Never needing to. Is there a problem? He asked, looking at Olivia, not at me. She forced a laugh. Just a clumsy mistake. Silence followed. Thick. Measured. He glanced at the wine stain, then back at her. Then I am sure, he said calmly, that an apology would fix it. Not a demand. Not a threat. Just a statement that sounded like gravity. The word apology hung in the air like something fragile and expensive, and for a second I thought Olivia might laugh again, might turn this into another performance. Her smile tightened instead. Excuse me? She asked lightly, as if she had misheard him. Dominic did not blink. You said it was a mistake, he replied. Mistakes are followed by apologies. His voice did not rise. It did not need to. The entire section had gone silent. Even the clink of silverware from nearby tables seemed to fade. Olivia shifted her weight, glancing at the faces around her. She was used to being the center of attention. She was not used to losing control of it. I think this has been blown out of proportion, she said, brushing invisible dust from her dress. It is just a server. Just a server. I felt the words land, but they did not sting the way they had before, because now everyone had heard them. Dominic's gaze did not leave her. Her name, he said calmly, is Hannah. The way he said it made my name sound different. Not small. Not printed on plastic. Real. Olivia's fiancé cleared his throat, uncomfortable. He had been silent this entire time, scrolling through his phone like he did not want to be part of this. Now he looked at Dominic with cautious recognition. Mr. Romano, he began carefully, we do not want any misunderstandings. Dominic turned slightly, acknowledging him without fully giving him his attention. There is no misunderstanding, he said. There was a spill. There were words. He paused just long enough to let that settle. Now there should be an apology. I watched Olivia's jaw tighten. She was calculating, weighing pride against reputation. Around us, the room felt like it was holding its breath. She forced a smile that did not reach her eyes and looked at me as if I were the inconvenience. Fine, she said sharply. I am sorry you cannot do your job properly. A few nervous chuckles broke out from one of her friends. Dominic did not react. He simply studied her, then glanced toward one of the men who had entered with him. No words were exchanged. No dramatic gestures. Just a subtle nod. The man stepped away, already pulling out his phone. Olivia's fiancé's phone buzzed almost immediately. He frowned at the screen. Then his expression changed. What is that? She demanded under her breath. He did not answer right away. He was reading. Scrolling. His face drained of color in a way that had nothing to do with spilled wine. Olivia, he said quietly. My father just called. She rolled her eyes. Tell him you are busy. It is about the Whitmore development deal. His voice was lower now. It just got pulled. The words felt heavy. Final. She stared at him. That is not possible. Dominic adjusted his cuff again, as if this were all administrative routine. Markets shift, he said evenly. Partnerships change. He looked at her one last time. Respect, however, is simple. And in that moment the balance of the room tipped. Not loudly, not violently, just completely. For a moment no one moved. Olivia stood frozen, her phone now in her own hand as she frantically refreshed whatever screen could confirm that her world had not just shifted beneath her feet. Her fiancé stepped back from the table as if distance might protect him from association. Around us the whispers returned, softer but sharper, sliding between tables like cold air. I was still standing there with a stained napkin in my hand, unsure whether I was supposed to disappear or remain. Dominic did neither. He did not gloat. He did not smile. He simply looked at Olivia the way a teacher looks at a student who has failed a simple test. Try again, he said quietly. 2 words. Calm. Certain. Olivia swallowed. I watched the struggle move across her face. Pride wrestling with fear. Calculation replacing confidence. She looked at me, really looked at me this time, and for the first time all night I did not look away. My heart was pounding but my spine felt straight. I apologize, she said finally, the words tight and measured, for speaking out of line. It was not warm. It was not sincere. But it was public. Dominic held her gaze for another second, as if weighing the tone, then gave the slightest nod. The tension loosened in the room, conversation slowly restarting, glasses clinking again, but something had changed. Olivia gathered her purse with trembling fingers and walked out without another word, her fiancé following close behind. The friends who had laughed moments earlier suddenly found the dessert menu fascinating. I realized I was still holding my breath. When I exhaled it felt like air after being underwater too long. Dominic turned to me then, and the intensity of his attention was different now. Not assessing. Not distant. Focused. Are you hurt? He asked, his voice lower, meant only for me. The question caught me off guard. No one had asked me that in a long time. No, I answered automatically. I am fine. His eyes flickered briefly to my wrist again. That was not what I meant. Heat crept up my neck. I tugged my sleeve down, instinctive, protective. It is nothing, I said softly. He studied me for a quiet moment, not pushing, not accusing, just noticing. Nothing does not leave marks, he replied. The statement was gentle, not confrontational, but it landed with uncomfortable accuracy. My manager suddenly appeared at my side, overly cheerful. Mr. Romano, we truly appreciate your patronage this evening. Dominic did not break eye contact with me. Make sure she does not lose her job, he said evenly. It was not loud but it carried weight. My manager nodded quickly. Of course. Absolutely. Dominic stepped back then, giving me space. He reached into his jacket and placed a simple black business card on the edge of the table beside me. No dramatic flourish. No expectation in his expression. If anyone makes you feel small again, he said quietly, call that number. I glanced down at the card, then back at him. Why? I asked before I could stop myself. A faint hint of something almost like a smile touched his expression. Because respect, he answered, should never depend on who can afford the table. And with that he turned and walked toward the exit, the room parting once more, leaving me standing there with my name tag still pinned to my chest, but feeling nothing like small. I did not look at the card until the end of my shift. I kept it tucked inside the small pocket of my apron, pressed flat against my hip like it might burn through the fabric if I acknowledged it too soon. The restaurant slowly returned to its normal rhythm, but it felt different to me. Lighter. Quieter in a way that had nothing to do with noise. My manager avoided my eyes for the rest of the night, overly polite when he spoke, as if I had suddenly become fragile or valuable or both. When the last table paid and the chandeliers dimmed to their late-night glow, I slipped into the staff hallway and leaned against the cool brick wall. My hands were steady now. Too steady. I pulled the card out carefully. It was simple. Thick matte black stock. A name embossed in silver.
Dominice romano.
A phone number beneath it. No title. No logo. Just certainty. I traced the edge with my thumb, then slid it into my wallet behind my student identification card, unsure whether that made it safer or more dangerous. Outside, the rain had picked up. Chicago in the spring is unpredictable, and the wind off the lake cut straight through my thin jacket as I stepped onto the sidewalk. My old Honda Civic sat 2 blocks down under a flickering streetlight. I started walking, heels clicking against wet concrete, replaying the night in my head, the way he had stood, the way he had said my name. No one humiliates what stands under my protection. The sentence echoed, and I was not sure if it felt like a promise or a warning. Halfway down the block, I heard quick footsteps behind me. My shoulders tensed automatically. I did not turn right away. Hannah. The voice was familiar. Not calm like before. Frustrated. I stopped. Olivia stood a few feet away under a black umbrella, her makeup flawless despite the storm. "Do you have any idea what you just cost my family?" she demanded. The arrogance was still there, but it was cracked now. I kept my distance. "I did not cost anyone anything," I said quietly. "You spoke." He responded. She stepped closer, lowering her voice. "You think he did that for you?" she asked. "Men like him do not help girls like you. They collect." The word lingered between us. I felt the instinct to shrink, to doubt, but something inside me held steady. "Then why are you here?" I asked softly. Her expression flickered just for a second. Because she needed to be the one with the last word. Because losing in public was unbearable. She scoffed and turned away, heels splashing through shallow puddles as she disappeared toward a waiting black car. I stood there for a moment, rain soaking through my hair, breathing in the metallic scent of the city after a storm. A black sedan idled at the corner across the street. Tinted windows. Engine running. It could have been anyone. Could have been nothing. I told myself not to assume. I unlocked my car and slid into the driver's seat, locking the doors behind me. My phone buzzed in the cup holder, startling me. Unknown number. My heart skipped. I let it ring twice before answering. "Hello." There was a pause. Then his voice, steady and unmistakable. "Did she follow you?" He did not ask how I was. He already knew. I glanced through the rain-streaked windshield at the sedan across the street. "Yes," I admitted. Silence, brief but loaded. "Go home," he said calmly. "Drive straight there. Do not stop." My pulse quickened. "Are you watching me?" Another pause. Softer this time. "I am making sure you get home safe." And for the first time in a long time, the word safe did not feel like a fantasy. I did not argue. I did not ask questions. I started the engine, the familiar rattle of my 12-year-old Honda grounding me more than his voice had. The rain blurred the windshield into streaks of silver and red as brake lights reflected across slick asphalt. I pulled away from the curb carefully, checking my mirrors without making it obvious. The black sedan at the corner eased into traffic, 3 cars behind me. Not tailgating. Not hiding. Just there. My fingers tightened on the steering wheel. "You do not need to do this," I said into the phone, keeping my voice low even though I was alone. "I can drive myself home." "I know you can," Dominic replied evenly. "That is not the point." His tone was calm, but beneath it was something steady and immovable, like reinforced steel under polished marble. I passed under the elevated train tracks, the metal structure rumbling overhead as a late-night train screeched by. Chicago felt different at 11:30 at night. Less forgiving. Streetlights flickered over empty sidewalks. A couple laughed outside a bar. A delivery truck double parked near a convenience store. Normal life continuing, unaware of how quickly power could shift inside a restaurant. "She will not try anything," I said, though I was not sure if I believed it. "She already tried," he answered. Silence followed. Not uncomfortable. Just deliberate. "I do not need protection," I added after a moment. "Everyone does," he said. "Most people just pretend they do not." I merged onto Lakeshore Drive, the dark expanse of Lake Michigan stretching to my right, waves barely visible under the cloudy sky. The city skyline glowed ahead of me, tall and indifferent. The sedan remained behind me at a respectful distance. "Why me?" The question slipped out before I could stop it. He did not respond immediately. I imagined him wherever he was, perhaps in the back seat of another car, perhaps watching through tinted glass. Because humiliation should not be entertainment, he said finally. And because you did not cry. That caught me off guard. Is that a requirement? I asked softly. A faint exhale that might have been a quiet laugh came through the line. No. It is rare. I exited toward my neighborhood, a quieter stretch of apartment buildings and small storefronts. The streetlights were dimmer here. Familiar. Safe in a different way. You saw my wrist, I said, not quite asking, not quite admitting. Yes. He did not soften the word. He did not dramatize it either. Just yes. It is nothing, I repeated, though it sounded weaker now. Nothing, he replied calmly. Does not make someone flinch when a glass tips. I swallowed. He had noticed that too. Of course he had. I pulled into the cracked asphalt lot behind my building and parked beneath the only working light. The sedan slowed at the corner but did not enter. It waited until I turned off the engine. I am home, I said. Good. A pause. Go inside. I hesitated with my hand on the door handle. Are you going to follow me every night? I asked. The question felt bigger than the moment. His answer was steady. Only until I know you are not standing alone. My chest tightened at that. Not from fear. From something else I was not ready to name. I stepped out into the damp night air, locking the car behind me, the phone still pressed to my ear. The building door creaked as I pushed it open. I am inside, I whispered. The sedan's headlights dimmed in the distance. Sleep, Hannah, he said quietly. Tomorrow will be different. And for the first time I believed him. I did not sleep. I lay on top of my comforter in my small studio apartment, staring at the faint crack in the ceiling above my bed, replaying his voice in my head. Sleep, Hannah. Tomorrow will be different. The radiator clanked every few minutes, and somewhere down the hall a neighbor argued with a television that was too loud. Normal sounds. Ordinary life. But my phone sat on my nightstand like it was charged with something more than battery. I checked the lock twice before finally closing my eyes, and even then my dreams were shallow and restless. Morning arrived gray and overcast, the kind of Chicago sky that never fully commits to sunlight. I showered, letting hot water run over my wrist longer than necessary, watching the faint yellowing bruise in the mirror. Nothing does not leave marks. His words had weight because they were true. I dressed carefully, choosing a long-sleeved blouse even though the forecast said 65 degrees by afternoon. Habit. Protection. When I stepped outside, the air smelled like wet pavement and fresh coffee from the corner shop. I half expected to see a black sedan parked across the street, engine idling. There was nothing. Just my aging Honda and a delivery truck unloading crates of produce. I told myself that was a good sign. At the restaurant, whispers traveled faster than orders. Maria grabbed my arm the second I walked into the break room. What happened last night? She asked, eyes wide. Is it true? I shrugged lightly, hanging my bag in my locker. It was just a misunderstanding. The word felt almost ironic. My manager appeared moments later, unusually composed. Hannah, he said carefully, you will be working the front section tonight. That had never happened before. The front meant higher tips. Higher visibility. Why? I asked before I could stop myself. He cleared his throat. Because you earned it. The answer was too neat. Too rehearsed. When I stepped onto the floor, I noticed subtle differences. Staff standing straighter. A new floral arrangement near the entrance. And then I saw it. A small reserved sign placed at the table in the corner. No name written on it. Just reserved. My pulse picked up despite myself. He did not appear at 6 o'clock. Or at 7. I almost convinced myself he would not come at all. That last night had been a single disruption in an otherwise predictable world. But at 7:32 the door opened and the room shifted again. Not dramatically. Not theatrically. Just enough. Dominic walked in alone this time. No entourage. No visible security. He wore a charcoal suit instead of black, his expression unreadable as always. He did not scan the room for exits tonight. He looked directly at me. My steps slowed for a fraction of a second before training kicked in. I approached his table with a menu in hand, heart steady but aware. "Good evening," I said professionally. "Welcome back." A faint glimmer of recognition crossed his eyes at the word back. "I told you," he said calmly as I set down a glass of water. "Today would be different." And the way he said it made it sound less like a prediction and more like a decision. He did not look at the menu. He did not need to. I placed it in front of him anyway, following routine because routine was the only thing keeping my pulse from racing. "Water is fine," he said quietly, though the glass was already there. His eyes held mine a second longer than necessary, not in a way that felt invasive but intentional. I nodded and stepped back, aware of how the other tables were watching without appearing to watch. Power changes the temperature of a room. Tonight it felt controlled, measured. "You are working the front now," he observed as I returned with a small bread basket, though he had not ordered it. "Yes," I replied. "Apparently I earned it." A subtle shift touched his expression, something close to approval. "You did." The simplicity of it caught me off guard. I busied my hands adjusting the silverware alignment, even though it was already perfect. "You do not have to keep doing this," I said softly, keeping my voice professional. "Showing up." He leaned back slightly in his chair, studying me with the same quiet intensity as the night before. "Do you want me to stop?" The question was direct. No pressure in it. Just clarity. I opened my mouth then closed it again. The truth hovered somewhere between gratitude and fear. "I do not want to owe anyone," I said carefully. His gaze did not waver. "You do not." He reached into the inside pocket of his jacket and pulled out something small, placing it on the table between us. "Not money. Not another card. A folded document." "What is that?" I asked. "Information," he replied. The Whitmore merger was not the only deal tied to that family. I hesitated before unfolding it, but curiosity won. It was a printed article from a local business journal, highlighting a chain of luxury developments that had recently lost major funding overnight. Investors had withdrawn quietly. Projects paused. No scandal. No public humiliation. Just silence and consequences. "You did this," I said, barely above a whisper. "They did," he corrected. I only reminded them that reputation has weight. My stomach tightened. "Because of me?" He considered that for a moment. "Because disrespect spreads," he said. "If left unchecked, it becomes policy." I looked at him then really looked. Not just the suit, not just the calm authority, but the deliberate restraint. He could have embarrassed her publicly. He could have escalated. He did not. He chose something quieter, more permanent. "You do not even know me," I said. "I know enough," he replied. "You stood up without shouting. That matters." A table across the room called my name, pulling me back into motion. I folded the paper and set it down carefully. "I should get back to work." He nodded once. "Of course." I took 3 steps then stopped. Something inside me refused to let this remain one-sided. I faced him again. "I am not small," I said evenly. His eyes softened just slightly. "I know." And for the first time the word protection did not feel like ownership. Felt like recognition.